Welcome back to Performance Lab. I'm Dr. Michael Donovan, a dad, coach, and explorer of what it really means to live with purpose and presence. Today's conversation is one I've really been looking forward to. It's with Peter Armstrong, a man who's diving deep into the work with high achieving men and fathers who are tired of carrying guilt, pressure, and self doubt. His story is raw and real. He's walked through shame and anxiety and come out the other side as someone who teaches men how to love themselves, connect more deeply, and show up fully at home and in life. This episode is going to go well beyond physical performance into emotional intelligence, purpose, and particularly flourishing. So let's get into it. Peter, welcome to Performance Lab.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate the opportunity, man.
Yeah, so we were talking about flourishing, and that's why a lot of men come to you. And I just want to start with a question. When you think of the quote unquote good life for men today, what's changed from the model that we grew up with?
Good question, dude. I don't know if I have the answer, but we can riff on it. I think what the difference now, and there's obviously different viewpoints on this. Like, for example, what is masculinity and what is masculine, what is not masculine, all these types of things. I don't know if I'm going to get into that too much. I would say that the high level is that the man, maybe our fathers, for example, that era, that generation, and even before, it was like just provide for your family. Provide financially, provide a home, provide them opportunities. That's the role of the man, right? And a lot of men have done that very well. However, I think what's missing from that version of a man, and let's just say fatherhood, husband, leader, is that they were told not to understand their emotions and their beliefs and their pain and their past and all that kind of stuff. And so, for the most part, they avoided it. They kept it down. They shoved it down. They didn't address it. They didn't talk about it. And that pain, that discomfort, those now they call them emotional wounds or childhood trauma, whatever you want to call it. That got in the way of the man connecting with his children, connecting with his wife on a more intimate level. And I'm not talking about sex intimacy, I'm talking about relational intimacy. I think it also got in the way of a man having really genuine, deeply connected friendships. And then also, I would see that as getting in the way of leadership. A lot of men who are not empathetic leaders, compassionate leaders, where they're caring about the other person in front of them instead of the objectives of, for example, the business or the mission. And nowadays, I think we're starting to realize, let's just say 10 years, that, you know, our past, our childhood development, and the science around these things, well-being and flourishing and relationships, including the Harvard study on adult development, that, our happiness, our well-being is intricately interconnected to our relationships. And that includes specifically our ones at home. And, I can speak from my own experience. You can be home and not be home, right? I was home every night, always with my children, but I wasn't really home. I was disconnected. Had anxiety, didn't know it, but deep shame, didn't believe in myself, didn't love myself, judged myself, whatever you want to call it. And that emotional experience within me was in the way of me connecting deeply and being more present for my children, being more empathetic with them. And that caused a divide with my children. And what I've experienced, obviously in my coaching practice with men is they experience very similar situations where they're like, it's hard to be present. I'm not patient with my kids. I don't understand how to connect with my kids because they're not connected to themselves. They don't understand their own emotional experience. And when they start doing this work, they start realizing, shit, man, I'm lonely. I'm sad. I wish my dad would have spent more time with me. You know how many men tell me, I wish my dad would have gave me a pat on the back more. I wish my dad would tell me he's proud of me. I wish my dad would have spent more time with me. I wish my dad would have threw a football with me more. I wish my dad, there's one more that I constantly hear. Yeah, I think this is just as men, believe it or not, boys their dad is everything. And I think what's different nowadays versus in the past, the man, that wasn't as important spending time with his son, right? It was like, let me do all the things I need to do, the shit around the house, make the money and the job, right? That's his role. I just think that's so limiting, for that man, because he's dying in some way, shape, or form, probably not feeling fulfilled. But the man nowadays, in my opinion, what I'm trying to, we have so much more we can provide. Yes, we can provide the finances and the home, the structure, the security, but we could also provide love and connection and presence and joy and character development, you know? And that's what I think. That's what I believe I'm trying to do. And what I believe is the next chapter for men is to realize we are more than just this financial provider. And there's so much, men are beautiful, man. Men are amazing. I love my job. Men are so beautiful, just like a woman, like they want to be loved. They want to be accepted. They want people to care about them. They want to be valued. Men say it as, I want to be respected. I want to be valued. I want to provide value. I want to serve, I want to achieve. But if you really, Michael, look at what's underneath all that, they want to belong. They want to be cared for. They want to be loved. They want to know that they have value in this world. They want to know they have a purpose, you know? And once they start to understand the deeper emotional reasons and the beliefs under why they're doing what they're doing, they start to see that there's gaps in their lives. And that's why they do what they do, achieving until they realize, okay, I've achieved X, Y, and Z, and something's still missing. That was a long answer.
No, so there's a lot of great value there. I want to look prospectively now and just describe that next chapter and what's at stake if they do the work, right? If there's, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, millions of men like you working with the millions of men who are doing this work, and they're more present with their kids, not just sons, right? But but
Mhm.
but their next generation. What is when we fast forward a generation, what could it look like?
Kids with higher self-esteem, kids with more empathy, kids with ability to ask for what they want, ask for when they need help, kids that, you know, turn into are more authentic or have the permission to be themselves. Because if their parent says, I believe in you, I love you, I care about you just the way you are, I let you have your emotions as a child, that's at the core of what develops our who we believe we are. And so then we're going to have men and or children rather that it sounds cliche, Michael, but like who believe in themselves, who know who they are and know they have a purpose, know they can achieve anything they want. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to have more people who are caring, kind, compassionate, courageous, confident, healthier, less addictions. And that's everything like, right, pornography or alcohol or phone addiction, unhealthy eating, whatever unhealthy coping mechanisms, we all have them, right? You, Gabor Mate says something very beautiful. It's not why the addiction, it's why the pain, right? There's always a value in your unhealthy coping mechanisms. It's providing you something. That's why you do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. And so I think you would have people, the short answer, you would have people flourishing. You'd have people who have a greater well being. They're physically healthier. Their mental health is better. Their relationships are better. And ultimately, they're happier. And I'm not saying happiness is the goal of life, but who the hell doesn't want to be happy? The Harvard study on adult development, I'll cite it again. The guy who ran the study for the last 40 years, the Harvard study on adult development is also called like the happiness study. Have you heard of it? It's been going on for 80 years. You can look up, you guys, whoever's hearing this can look it up. It's been going on for 80 years. The guy that's been running the study though for 40 years, the director, I forgot his name. He has a TED talk. You know how he summed up his 40 years of leading this study? And this is it. Happiness is love. Full stop. Period. And why does he say it that way? Because what he found were the men who had the closest relationships with people who they felt supported by, that were empathetic of their needs. Those are the men who felt the happiest. And this was men that went to Harvard or men in the poorest parts of Boston. It didn't matter. It's about relationships and that acceptance and being seen and heard and understood. And this is all shit that sounds like weak, right? Well, guess what? I'm telling you right now, this is what every human wants. It's just that we don't use it that way. Men don't use the words, they don't word it that way, right? And so, yeah, at the end of the day, you would have happier people. And here's the thing, well, who cares about being happy? Watch this. When you're happy, Michael, how do you show up at home? What's your
Our
behavior
best
like?
self,
Yeah,
calm, grounded, centered, present.
exactly. And what's the benefit of that for get a son? Right?
I do. Yeah.
What's the
He just
benefit? What's
turned
his name?
3. Bennett.
Bennett. Beautiful. So what's the value? What's the benefit for Benefit. Bennett. What's the benefit that dad's happier for Bennett? What does that do for Bennett?
What what first comes to mind is he is 90% of the time happy. And I think it reinforces that that's an appropriate steady state. It's an appropriate normal state to be silly and to be happy and to be positive and not to look at the things that are not exactly the way you want them to be. And I even reinforce almost on a daily when he's whining about something and I say, Bennett, just ask for it. To your point earlier, right? We ask for what we need, we ask for what we want. I just say, Bennett, I'm not going to get it for you if you whine. Just ask for it. And he says,
Yeah,
Daddy,
that's
may I have this,
beautiful,
please? And I say, Yep, here you go.
dude. Good job, man. Seriously, seriously, dude. That's beautiful. That's perfect. That's a great thing. Hey, just ask. That's beautiful, man. And what happens?
What happens then?
Oh, froze there for a second. Michael, you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah. What I was just keep riffing on that, right? You're happy. Then he whines. You basically say, ask for what you want. He asks. I'm guessing in some way, shape, or form, depending on the circumstance, you give him what he wants,
Yeah.
unless there's a cookie before dinner.
Yeah, I mean, and I think with anything, there's no unreasonable request if it's done in the right way, in the right context, and so maybe even, this once it is a cookie before dinner, and it's like, unless it's really
Yeah.
long-term detrimental, becomes a bad habit or something like that, I think whether it's with children or adults, we can strive for perfection, but that, that we're gonna fail, many times, and so, just not making negative things habits, but just having them be the exception and not the rule.
hmm So if you let's do this one more thing here. So if you are not happy, calm, grounded, and present, okay, what is a state that you can be in sometimes, right, at home
Sure.
that is not calm? What's that state like? Like try to connect to the
Yeah,
emotions of it.
distracted, restless, agitated, frustrated.
Frustrated, that's more of the emotion. Restless, distracted usually is connected to fear, anxiety.
Yeah.
And so now if Bennett is whining, how do you respond?
Not from a place of love, not from a place of
Yeah,
love, from a place of it's somehow about me. It's an inconvenience, that you're wanting this, and it flips it to, almost, I go to his level rather than bringing him to my level. Even though he's only 3, like either there's that adolescent, prehistoric brain that kicks in, and that whining is just noise that I want, it's agitating and I want it to stop.
beautiful. So basically you're right, it's fear. You're in a fear state, right? You could I mean it's like sympathetic, you're in your arousal, you're triggered, you're emotionally dysregulated, whatever ways you want to talk about it. And because you're in that state, now this secondary, this other output, or excuse me, this other thing is coming in when you're already like not feeling grounded. And then what did you say you want? I want it to stop, right? But that's a child. That's your little boy that you love. But because you're already, it's too much already, you're like, I don't want this. And then how do you respond? Are you okay sharing this, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful, man. I'm proud of you. Because we all, I've done it. I still do it sometimes. Shit, man. But this is important. I want to keep going with this, and then we can close on it. But there's something important here.
Yeah, in that case, there's times when I've not yelled at him, but just been short, just been curt with him, and not. One of the things I do when he's knee high, and when I'm really in the good state, I get down to his level, and when I'm not,
Yeah.
I stand completely tall, and you're looking down, and I think
Yeah.
it's that eye to eye, or picking him up, right? So he's eye to eye.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
I think, figuratively and literally is a really powerful technique.
Yeah. But so for a sec, stay. So yes, but hey, stay with this for a second. So right now you're talking down to him, and you're curt. You're basically, I don't want to hear this. I want this to go away. Or what words do you use?
Yeah, just want I want to resolve whatever it is, so we can move on to the
Yeah.
things that I really want to be
Exactly.
doing in that moment.
And so now this little Bennett, right? He, in some way, shape, or form, is having some sort of emotional experience, right? Whether or not his emotional experience is justified, I think it's always justified. It's just that how he arrived at that emotional experience is and might not be true. But his emotions that he's experiencing, that's real for any human. And when we have that emotion's real happening for us. How we arrived at it sometimes is not always the truth, though. And I'll talk about that in a second. But now he's having, maybe he's afraid or sad, right? And you're basically like, I don't want that. How does that, best guess, how does that make him feel about himself?
Say that again. How does that what?
How do you think when dad's curt with me, talks down, he's impatient, how do you think that makes him feel about himself?
Like, what he's asking for isn't important. Like, he's not important.
There you go.
Like,
Right
and
there.
then
Because he's
also
only three.
reflecting my energy that, of the fear, right? Like, I'm in a
Totally.
fear state. He's probably mirroring that, being in a fear state as well, even though there's no actual threat. I'm suggesting to him
There
through
is,
my presence and my body
but there is a
language that there
threat.
is a threat.
There is a threat for you. And that's what most men don't realize. So the mind and body doesn't understand the difference between a cognitive threat and a physical threat. So there is a threat for you. That's why you have the anxiety. It's just subconscious. It's not a valid, true threat, maybe, right, dude? But you do feel threatened. Hence why you have that emotional experience. But the point I want to make here is really important. Is the gist is in some way, shape, or form, he feels like dad doesn't like him, right? Dad doesn't think I'm important. Kids don't. All we know is it probably is like, oh, dad doesn't love me or something, right? Like I'm not good enough. And so think about that over the course of 10 years, right? From 0 to 10, or let's say 2 to 12 or something. How many how many times does that have to happen for finally a child to be like, wow, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. Dad doesn't like me. Mom doesn't like me, right? It's the story that just keeps playing. And so this is why we have to do this work. Me, you, men, all these guys, the next generation, is because if we can regulate our nervous system and we can have less fear response and be more present, connected, loving, accepting of ourselves, have more empathy and compassion. Now we can get down on our knees and look at our child in their eyes and say, I see you, I understand you, I hear you. And that is the feedback loop that says, I'm loved, I'm accepted, I'm enough. See why that's important? Why, at least that's why I think it's important.
Totally.
And I think that's what's different nowadays is we have the science, we have the data, we have the research, right? So let's start using it. And I think if a lot more men understood the detriment that they're doing to their children by like shutting down their own emotions and the house that shuts down their emotions, my best guess is men would be like, damn, dude, I love my kids so much. I want to change. That's the only reason why I changed. Honestly, man, is because I realized my kids told me that I never listened to them. I only listened to my ex-wife. And when I heard that, I knew what that meant, right? That dad doesn't care about me, basically. And that's when I made a covenant to my children to get better, man. And here we are, 5 years later, almost to the day shit of divorce. So I can be long winded, man.
No, I love it. I love it. This isn't the work I primarily do, but I have a blog on my website that I riff on a lot of things. And I just pulled up on August 23rd. I published a blog article called "Children Only Knock Twice: Once with expectation,
Mm,
once with hope, then they give up."
mm.
So I encourage listeners to check that out because it's along the same lines that around the connection, and there's a hopelessness that maybe it's not after the third time, but as you said, after many reps of showing the same thing, they get, we as human beings, even at a young age, are pattern recognizers, and
100%.
you don't want to continue to make a bid for connection, as we say in your romantic relationships often, when it's just rejected or ignored, you stop reaching out.
You stop asking. And the thing is with children, they're asking for help a lot, but they're not, it doesn't seem like they're asking for help. You know what I'm saying? Like a child that is really overwhelmed and stressed and crying and, having a fit, so to speak, they don't know how to regulate their nervous systems. They actually need a hug. They need daddy to pick them up. They need mommy to pick them up because they don't know how to do that yet. And that co-regulation is actually how a child's nervous system, brain, and everything comes together to actually help them learn how to do it. And so that is really important too, And so like sometimes the fit is actually for help. I know it sucks in the middle of Target, but the best thing you could do, even if you're embarrassed, is just to be with them in that moment, man. I'm gonna say this like fuck what everybody else thinks. Be with your kid. Because at the end of the day, 60, 70 years from now, you're on your deathbed. Who do you want next to you? You want your kids to be with you. You want to
I
know,
want to just
you know what I mean?
I want to just pull on that for just a second, because I think you made a really important point, and we do this all the time. I think not just with our kids, but if you asked someone who's the most important people in your life, right? Like who is really the most important people in your life? For me, there's four people. It's my fiance, my son, and my brother and my dad. That's it.
Yeah.
And I've said this many times on this podcast that outside of that, I really, as much as I like you, as much as I love you, I really
Mhm,
don't care that much what you think.
mhm.
And I have to remind myself of that often, because when I'm posting something on my blog or on social media, or speaking in some regard, I sometimes think I care what people think. And then I remind
Mhm,
myself, I don't really care what strangers think. And I mean, in the moment, maybe I do, but right afterwards, I won't. A day later, a year later, I'm not going to
mhm.
care at all. I mean, let alone on your deathbed, And so in that moment, you're trading someone you really, really care about and love and prioritize, and or one of the most important people in your life, for what freaking strangers in the department store are going to think of you,
Yes, and why would a dad or a mom care about that? Why would a
because
dad or mom, for
it's a
example?
reflection of them, they believe, right? That
Yeah,
their
like I'm not a
child
good parent,
doing right. And I
right?
would just say to that, and I mean, this is your area of expertise more than mine, but I would just say to that, that's like telling a dog to stop barking. That's what dogs
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. But usually it's not. You said it very well. It's not about the kid, right? It's about what people perceive of you, right? And we know that deeply and wired as in a human is we want to belong, right? We want connection. We want to be accepted. This is a subconscious level. And you can look into this subconscious thoughts. You can even look into trauma. The Body Keeps the Score is a great book. Gabor Mate talks about his emotional wounds, but basically we have these childhood experiences, right, that are still inside of us. And people aren't, you can say you could get triggered by this. Your kid's flipping out in Target, and in some way, shape, or form, you see people looking at you, and it reminds you of, being on the baseball field where you struck out and everyone looked at you and laughed, right? It's a similar scenario. And if you never processed that experience as a little boy, right? And the way you felt, in many ways, you think that same thing is happening, right? And what's important here, though, is that it only hurts, it only stings if you believe it to be true. And so, what I mean by that is, like, if you're inside Target and your kid's having a tantrum, and if you believe I'm a bad parent if my kid has a tantrum in Target, the belief I'm a bad parent if my kid has a tantrum in Target, if you believe that, then you're going to be afraid of people judging you in Target. That's then going to elicit emotions, and then there's going to be some sort of behavior that you're going to do to try to protect that bad parent persona identity. And then the result is, at the end of the day, the end result of that is, like, it's going to get in the way of you having a good connection with your child. So nothing really gets resolved. But if you don't believe that I'm a good parent, my kid's going to have a meltdown. They're freaking 3. I'm going to be with them. I'm going to help them, right? You stay calm because you believe you're a good person. You're a good man. You're a good father. You're a good parent. You be with the kid. The action is a hug. And result is the tantrum lasts 3 minutes versus 15. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think we
And
all
at the
have
end of the day,
seen.
if you keep doing that over time, man, that's where the kids are going to be like, you got me. You take care of me when I'm struggling.
Yeah, we've all seen examples of parents, pouring gas on the fire and, yelling at their kids in that case, and just creating more and more of a divide instead of giving the kids what they need in that moment, which is empathy and love.
And I want to say this too, man, because there are people hearing this like, well, that shit shouldn't happen in Target. Yeah, yeah, I understand that too. Like, right, your kid shouldn't do that. That's a whole nother topic. I mean, right, there's going to be people like, right, that you need to shut that shit down. You know, that's another approach. I just don't have that approach, and that's okay. I understand that approach too. Again,
Yeah.
my vision is more rooted in, I want to help men. Just we'll use the word happy. I want to help men be happy. And the way that we have found so far, the gist, and happiness can be defined in all these different ways, Michael. But the gist is the high level, best way to aim, the best bullseye for happiness is going to be found in relationships. And so that's what I'm always trying to, like, okay, how can I improve their relationship with themselves so they can improve their relationships with their loved ones? If that can happen, they're going to be moving closer to that happiness, that flourishing aspect. There's more to it, but that's the biggest lever.
So let's talk about two other kinds of relationships with their partner, spouse, and relationships with their friends. Because when you said happiness basically equals love, there are, the Greek words, many forms of love, right? Eros and agape
Mm,
and philos and
mhm,
many others.
mm,
And so I think one of the things in relationship with a partner is roles. And you started off with provider and leader and now parent. And, so these are some roles. And so I wonder if that would lead us anywhere, with a partner. And then also talking about friendship or brotherhood.
mhm, mhm. Well, I will say this. This is my least area of success, is romantic partner. And so I'll just put that out there. I mean, I've basically been divorced twice. And if the high level cliff notes is because in some way, shape, or form, I didn't love myself. I didn't see myself as valuable. And I let partners pick me versus me picking my partner, if that makes sense. And so my relationships didn't work out. Hence why I went on this journey, 5 years ago when I went through my divorce and said, I asked myself two questions. How did I get into this marriage? Because what I experienced was, I'm co-responsible, by the way, for my marriage failing. But what I experienced was not cool. And so I asked myself, how did I get into this marriage? How did I get into this type of relationship? And then the second question I asked myself was, how will I never get into this type of relationship again? And so the short answer is what I found is that, right, I was codependent. I didn't love myself. I accepted I less than. And I realized the second question is, how will I never get into this type of relationship again? Is I had my own shit that I needed to work through. I had to heal my own childhood traumas. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my parents. I had to stop judging myself. I had to learn self love, self acceptance, self empathy, self compassion, self forgiveness, and all those types of things. And so to me, and now I'm ready. I've been dating now, and I just see how I show up. I just say I'm able to say no more. I'm more selective. I'm more willing to I'll see a red flag and I'm like, can I work with that? Is that okay? Versus in the past, I saw it and I was like, oh, well, now it's like, no. And so I'm going to be frank. I help. I can't speak from my personal experience, but what I can speak to is almost every one of my clients comes to me and says, I want to be a better husband. I can't tell them how to be a better husband, but what I can speak to, and I do help them with to help them become a better husband or romantic partner, because not all the guys I work with are married. I help them work on their relationship with themselves to understand where they're triggered, to understand why they do what they do. And when you can start to understand why you do what you do or don't do, that's how behavioral change happens. Awareness is the gateway to positive change. And so what I'm helping men do is for them to understand, well, why do I get angry with this? Why do I yell? Why do I shut down? Why do I isolate? Why don't I ask for what I need? How come I don't share when I'm sad with my wife? How come I don't tell my wife how I truly feel? And these are men that are business owners that are killing it in the professional space, but they struggle sometimes to be themselves in the romantic relationship. And really what it comes down to, again, it comes down to childhood, man. Are you familiar with attachment style? Yeah. And so the men that I work with, even guys that are secure, who show up as secure, they still, you can have a secure attachment style overall, but in your romantic partnership, you could be more avoidant or more anxious. And so I have guys who are like secure, and it's like, what the fuck? What is going on here? And what I've realized is they're secure overall, but with their partner, they may be avoidant or anxious. And you can see it. I have every guy take an assessment. And they take this assessment and you can see it. It shows the quadrant romantic partner and they have more anxiety or avoidance. It shows it. And so that's what I found in this too, is romantic partners are a unique relationship because they fear rejection. They fear abandonment, right? And it's usually connected to dad or mom.
And I wonder if also, again, they're reflecting the energy of their partner. And if their partner is more avoidant or the partner is more anxious, then they internalize some of that as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Michael. And so, for example, so I was dating a woman, and this is like 2 years ago. I had more anxious attachment style. She for sure was avoidant. So that would trigger me because I'm like, right? Like, how come she doesn't want to hang out with me? What did I do? Am I too needy? Was that why? And then I would judge this. I had this inner dialogue with myself. Like, if she doesn't like me, can I like me? Right? I started having this dialogue and I'm like, damn, dude, I've done all this work and I'm still thinking this way. I'm like, what the hell? And that's when I started doing inner child work. And I was like, whoa, I love me regardless if I'm needy or not. What if a child is needy? Do you tell them that, "Oh, I don't like you. You're needy. I don't like you. No, no, no. Come to me when you're not needy." We would never do that. And maybe I was needy. Maybe I was, but I was rejecting, I was abandoning myself, right? Like, you are needy. What were you needy about? If I'm trying to put it in the hands of my romantic partner to meet that need, then it's always external. That's always going to create some sort of inner chaos because now I need that thing that's outside of me to help me feel safe. That's always going to be a problematic situation. And that's when I was like, I see what is going on here. So that right there, that dynamic is common for men, whether it's you're avoidant or anxious. Either way, it's like avoidance or like I fear rejection so much that I'm gonna close off, or I'm anxious, I fear rejection, so I need the intimacy. At the end of the day, it's the same thing in a different, but it shows up differently. Not the same,
Yeah.
similar.
Right. Right. So let's talk about friendship. We were texting about this last week, and first I'm just curious what came up and why that was something you wanted to make sure we talk about.
Man, well, what what got me to reach out to you was I was having a conversation with a friend. I think so. Friend, acquaintance, colleague. He's in Go Abundance. We were having a conversation and he got really vulnerable with me. And he was telling me that a friend, childhood friend, or like guy he's known for 25 years, long story short, is his friend basically told him why they're not close anymore or why he doesn't want to be his friend. And in some way, shape, or form, he's hurt by it, right? And knowing the guy that I am, like I'm like, okay, man, you need to know why this is important to you. I'm like, is this guy? Do you like this guy? Do you love this guy? Do you want this guy to be your friend? Like, do you want this man in your life? And I asked him these hard questions, and this guy's a little more reserved. Sometimes I'm nervous to ask him certain questions, and he said he does. I'm like, okay, man. Well, this is important to you. Then I would encourage you to better understand this. And so I gave him a little coaching and questions. And my friend said, like, we don't need friends. He was like, we don't need friends because like now we have our family. So we don't need friends anymore. And I was like, and then, obviously he has GoBundance. So he has this group of men who are kind of like friends, right? And I was like, fuck, man, is he right? Like, are friends only important at certain chapters of life? Like, do we not need friends anymore? Like, I was like, oh, wait a minute here. I'm not a person who's like, this is the way. I love being challenged. I love having a dialogue on something even I'm super passionate about because it helps me better understand why I care about something. And so this guy said that to me and he got me thinking more and more. So that's why I brought it to you. It's like, do we need friends? Do men at 40 years old for the rest, let's just say 40 to 75, do we need friends? Do men who have families need friends? Maybe very specific.
It's a question to me that's like, do do we really need air to breathe? And if we take out that qualifier, uh, I would turn it around and say, why do we need friends? If we don't need friends after 40, why do we need friends before 40? What do they provide? Let's take another analogy. A plant needs sunlight and water and soil to grow, not just sunlight or not just water. And you see what happens to a plant when it only is drawing its nutrients from one source. And I would say the same thing is true. And I would ask that man to ask his wife how much of a burden he is on, because if you have a problem or if you want to celebrate something or anything in between, I think it's good to spread that energy around and not just
Hmm.
have your family as the ones you
Hmm.
go to for those kinds of things. And when we talk about friendships, that's not one uniform, you look at your friends, and if you rate it on a scale of like 1 to 5, the strength of the relationship, there's probably some, probably not a lot of ones, hopefully, but long lost, as you said, a colleague. I mean, you couldn't characterize this person, right? Because they're not like necessarily a friend, right? But those 3 to 5, you still have friends who are a 3 out of 5, and then you have friends who are a 5 out of 5. Those ride or die friends when you're at your lowest or you're at your highest, those are the ones you turn to. And so I think
But Michael, not every man has what you just said.
I'm not saying everyone has that, but I think not everyone has the composure to not yell at your kids in Target either. but we're not talking, I think, about what's normal. I think we're talking about what's optimal. And really, I
There you
would
go.
argue what's natural. We've just strayed from
That's
that.
beautiful. Well, what's often natural is optimal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, so let
Some
me play
people
devil's advocate.
it
So go
some
ahead.
people might even say, "Why do I need a family when I have work? I have my
How
employees. I have my job. Like, why do I even need a family?" But is your job giving you love? And if happiness equals love and love equals happiness, then success in your job is in a different category than love and happiness. And you'll never get in that category if you're pouring all of your energy into just that one.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I am, by the way, I think one of the only things I've ever really been good at is being a friend. So I believe in them deeply. Like when you have, when I have friends tell me, Pete, you're like the only person that I feel like I can be myself with. And I've heard that probably from 10 different friends. I've heard from friends, Pete, like friends tell me that I'm their best friend, and multiple people. So I'm sharing this because I believe in friendship deeply. But if this guy is, let's just say this guy has a point. For example, let's play with this idea because you're in GoBundance, right?
Yes.
Okay. The can men get a GoBundance, Go Bros, or even some sort of business mastermind similar to GoBundance? Is that enough? Is that what's the difference in value of that kind of male relationship versus a friendship? That's where actually I'm curious about. Like what's the similarities? What are the differences? And for example, like, are there a lot of men, high achieving men, who have, I can speak from my own experience as a coach. A lot of men that I have worked with tell me they don't have friends. They don't have really close friends. They have deal friends, deal ships. And what they tell me is like, I don't have anyone really honestly that I like fully trust, that fully knows me, that I can be myself with, that I don't have to wear a mask. Guys tell me this shit. And I'm like, well, maybe that's just the guys I help. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's just the guys that I work with. But then it's like, there's a part of me that's like, what if, like, are a lot of men, high achieving men, because they've given so much to their career and business and they've gotten so good at that, that they put the blinders on, they cut out, they pushed away their friends because either A, that was too important, or B, they were no longer going the same direction as them. So they were like, I don't like this guy. This guy isn't trying to do what I'm trying to do. So we're not alike anymore. And so then let's just say they did this for 10 years, right? Let's just say 30 to 40, Michael. Now they're 40. They built the thing they've been chasing, right? They have the house, they have the wealth, the net worth, and they're like, fuck, man. It's just me, my wife, and kids. And now they need something like GoBundance or similar mastermind because they're looking for that male to male connection. And so there's this part of me is like, is that good enough then? Is that cool? Is that good enough for most men? And probably the answer is probably yes for most men, that something like GoBundance or mastermind, that's good enough for them. But it's like, is friendship even more richer, even more beautiful, that helps you actually feel more happy in the long run? So I know this in itself could be a whole conversation.
I was thinking the
Do
same
you see what
thing.
I'm getting at
My
though?
my I do. My mind works in analogies, and what I think um mastermind groups say they do, and hopefully do, is provide a system, provide accountability, show you how to do something well. You have a network of people who maybe have done what you're trying to do before or differently or in a parallel way. But the analogy that I thought about is, and maybe people have friendships that describes too. That's not the way that my friendships generally look. And what I would say is the mastermind is like actors in separate movies, and it's like the Oscars, right? And so you have this collection of actors who all acted in separate movies versus friendships are co-stars in the same movie.
Okay, keep going.
So you're interacting, right? You're acting together. You're acting in the same scenes. You're engaging with each other. When I throw something your way, you respond, right? Because we're in this dance that's not about accountability, that's not about a structure and a system and an outcome and something that is, always forward, because that's not real life. And so when we take a sidestep or we take a step back, that interplay is friendship.
What I guess what does friendship do for you? Or maybe why how
Friendship,
come you
I think one of the biggest things I've recognized over a decade ago, when I was growing up, I was more of an introvert. And as I've gone through life, I've become more of an extrovert. And I could sit in my office all day working on something, pondering, ruminating, thinking, and never come up with something that I could in 10 minutes of conversation, 10 minutes of connection with someone else. And so one of the things that friendship does for me is sort of ironically the opposite of what you were describing you do as a friend, is that I show up the best to my friends in the way that you said your friends, you provide space for them, as sort of this best friend role. So each of my individual friends like brings out elements of me, aspects of me that otherwise are hidden. And so they allow me to shine my light brighter in all different directions in a way that I never would without friends.
I think yeah, so your light shines brighter. Is there any part of your friends that actually help your light shine though? Like when you're, for example, like if you're struggling, you have a friend that you talk to them, you can share what you're struggling with, and they're like, "Dude, Michael, man," and they don't give you unsolicited advice. It's more about because they love you, and they're just saying, "Hey, maybe you should look at it this way." You know what I mean? Like, do you have friends that help you when you need help?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And what's that like?
But I don't keep them around because of that. Right, that's a terrible way to say that, but, they're not in my life because I know that they're just because I know that they're reliable. I've found that in mastermind groups. I've found the problem solvers that I need, right? It's it's the depth, I think, that is the difference between a friendship and a colleague, right? Or a brother and a mastermind, is that, and I'm not saying it can't be there, but it's
Yeah.
inherently, by definition, in a friendship, and it's possible in those other types of relationships.
So that depth aspect, I think that is something in that, whatever that depth is between men, that friendship. When I think of that, what I think about is just this caring, right? This genuine, sincere care for that other person that I have for that man, that my friend. And I also I feel the same way. Like I know he cares about me. And it's like it's almost like it's hard to explain, but it's like, my friend, like I have a friend of mine that's going through divorce, right? And obviously I care about him. I know what that's like. But we've been friends for almost 20 years anyways. So it's like I just want I just care about him. I know he's sad. I know he's lonely. I know he's, all the things he's going through. I'm just trying to like be there. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to ever give him unsolicited advice. I just want to like, what can I do as a friend? And sometimes just like showing him a good time, like not intentionally either, like just being me. Like doing what we do together is all he needs, And I think about that as little boys, man. Like when we were little kids, if there was some shit going on in our house, I'll speak from my childhood experience. Like if my mom and dad, that was kind of like a little bit of chaos. Dude, you know how I found peace and joy and solace and freedom? Was going outside, being with my friend, playing tag, playing football, riding our bikes across the freaking city, And I think I'm realizing that maybe it's this unexplainable thing that when you just be authentic, you just be yourself, you just be you, And if you can do that with another human being, like you're a friend, dude, I don't know, man. I don't know if there's anything greater than that. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
think we often I do, and we often talk about being versus doing, right? And I think even of I'm intentionally fortunate that I have many really, really good friends. And again, on a sort of scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the like tightest friends, my very, very best friends. Those are those who are I call just to or get together with just to be with. And there are others who you said, go play tag or ride a bike or whatever. Even at a young age, we had friends who we just did things with. And I would say those are more in that like 3 range. That if you were like, hey man, want to take a 10-hour road trip? You'd be like, what are we going to talk about for 10 hours? Versus others, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
absolutely, we'll talk
two
nonstop, no
weeks.
music on. We'll just talk the whole time, and
Yeah.
or just sit, right? Not even talk, just be together. You don't even have to talk, right? There's gonna, 10 hours is a long time to talk. But I think that's one of the things I just bring it up again because it's something we overlook. And when we're talking about friendships, that there's these gradations, there's these tiers, there's these ways that things look different in friendship. And so if you have one narrow definition of a friend, then it's just a black or white decision. Is this person you were describing before, is his friend, do they qualify, right? Do they meet the qualifications to be a friend or not a friend? But if you have these
Yeah.
concentric circles of closeness, then they don't need to be a 4 or a 5. Maybe they're a 2, right? Or maybe they're a 2, but they could grow into a 4. Or maybe they're a 4 now and they'll fade into a 2. But that's
Mhm.
the malleability of friendship. And, some friendships you just have to let go, but others go in and out and many times it is proximity because it's someone you are a doer with and you used to work out at the gym with or go on hikes or grab a beer or whatever, but you couldn't just
With
be with.
Yeah. Well, and another aspect of friendship that I found is the nurturing. Like, you have to nurture friendships. Like, there could be I think about a guy that lives here in Madison with me. We've been friends now for almost the entire time I've been here, and he's one of my best friends now. But it took intentionality, Michael. Like, it took intentionality, like, "Hey, man, you wanna go for a bike ride? Hey, man, you wanna go get coffee?" Like, it took intention. Like, I saw something in him. We were providing each other value. I liked him. We shared values, shared experiences that we liked, and he was a caring person. Like, I just felt this, and I would say, like, it took intentionality to say, "I see something in this man that I'm curious about learning more about him." And sometimes it's like dating. You gotta kinda give it a little bit more to see could this be something, you know? And I think that's hard for men to understand. And I would say a lot of guys will tell me, dude, I don't want to give, they don't want to be hurt, is the gist. They've already been hurt by friends. Maybe they've been rejected, abandoned by friends, whatever you want to call it. And now they're afraid to invest that time and that intimacy into a friendship because they're worried what happens if it doesn't work out. And so what do? Protect, shut off. They don't explore. And they're missing, and dude, in my opinion, they're missing out on, like, I think, the fullness of life. So there's another part there. You got to be intentional, man. You got to put it on the calendar. You got to put it on the calendar. Like me and my
When
buddy
the
John, we what's that?
I was just going to say the irony is that the 5s out of 5, many of them in my life started as 3s for a long time.
Mm,
And we saw each other and we were friendly, but not really, really close. And then there was some experience we had together or some moment, and we've been close ever since. And some of these friends
mhm,
for over a decade.
mm,
And the irony is that when they're that close, you might only see them once or twice a year. You might only talk to them every other month or every quarter, but you drop in like it was yesterday once you've reached that, in my experience, once you've reached that depth of friendship. While the threes, you have to be very consistent and very in touch, or they go to twos or ones and just fall out of your life.
What I've experienced too is with a five. So this is where I'm at with my fives. Jesse Itzler got me on this, Michael, a couple years ago. That dude, I'm 40 some years old. Let's just say I live to 75 or 80. Okay, that's 35 years. If you do what you just said, where you see your friend once or twice a year, that means basically you're going to see them right 50 more times. Maybe that's enough. But I'm like, damn, dude, when I'm with this guy, I, God, man, it's so beautiful. I want to see him more. And so I shared with a couple of my friends a couple of years ago, like, hey, dudes, listen, I love you. I would love to do more things with you. I would like to create more things in my life, and I want you to be included. A couple of the guys were like, same here, man. One guy, I remember another guy. He didn't respond, and I'm like, okay, that was a gift. But I see it as now I'm like, damn, dude, I love this man. This dude, I like being with him. I want to be with him as much as not as much as possible, right? You got our kids, you got our businesses, but like, how do you create more experiences because they're a five? That's where I'm at. And I have like three or four guys that are like that in my life. I'm like, dude, you're a five. You're my man. I love being with you. Let's try to figure out how to be together more.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I At the end of the year, this time of year, I do a past year review, and the highlights were obviously outside of being with my fiance and when we got engaged in August, and all the great times I had with my son were with these closest friends. And so I thought, and a surprise birthday party my fiance threw for me last January, and so
Mm,
I'm combining a couple of those things in just about a month. I'll be assembling 10 of my closest friends in
mm,
a house in the mountains in the DC area, because last year it was difficult to get everyone to Colorado. And so I'm going to where the bulk of them are. And then I have on my kind of goals for next year. I haven't planned the exact dates, but I will soon, when I'm going to see these guys like at least quarterly,
mm.
if not more often. And a lot of that might require, because I have more flexibility, me going to them and not asking them to make the trip across the country, but I want that to become the norm. And we can always, yeah, as you said, I mean, but there's lots of other things to balance, and we can always make excuses and reasons, why we can't do it. But I think, when I fast forward even 5 or 10 years, time with friends, time with family, that's going to mean a lot more than numbers in a bank account, or, clients we serve, or things like that. Because I think those will happen because we really, really want to focus on those. But sometimes we take our friends for granted because they're always there. We don't see those relationships slipping in the same way we see our, you know, coaching business slipping or something like that, right? Because we don't have those same metrics to really quantify it. But it's more important to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this too, man. On this topic is that, this is me being a little vulnerable here, but I had a best friend from 5 years old up until 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Best friend, all this stuff, knew everything about me. I knew everything about him. We were just always just ride or die, man. Always together. See, parenting and adulthood, all that kind of stuff. We weren't together as much, but we still made a couple times every year to be together. And I took alcohol out of my life 5 years ago. What I noticed over the 5 years, over over 2, 3 years after I took alcohol out of my life, and I would still go spend time with him, was how much he drank and how much that means we drank together. Right. And 2 years ago, we went to his house, my kids and and I just noticed how much they were drinking. And I even said something to him this time because he was going to drive at like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, I was like, hey, man, like, you already, had a couple, man. Why don't you take it easy? I don't know if this is if that's what did it. There are some other things here. But after that weekend, he never talked to me again. And I haven't talked to him since. I've reached out about 5 times. even willing to apologize. Hey, if I offended you, man, I want to apologize. I want to make amends. I love you. I care about you. Just let me know. And basically that same tone, 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times, no response. I don't know exactly why. I have ideas, but at the end of the day, what I wanna say is sometimes, going back to you, like, maybe we just outgrow friends, and I think that might have been the situation where the things that he did, I think in shared interest is really important, Michael, a shared thing. So, for example, I just went on a trip with, Dustin Baldwin and Tribe Travel, shared thing was surfing. Right? I've never surfed before in my life. But when you have a shared hardship, a shared adventure, a shared mission, I have found that that is what bonds men. And I have with my other friends, I have cycling, like everybody's mountain biking and road, and some of my closest friends are cyclists. We do things together. But then I have another friend, he's not a cyclist. And 2 years ago, we went to Glacier National Park. His 2 kids and my 2 oldest, we did that 10-day road trip. We did a 10-day road trip to Glacier. I was scared. I was like, "Dude, I haven't spent this much time with him since high school. I hope we like each other," you know? Dude, it was the best thing ever. And so I think a shared adventure, a shared mission, a shared interest is what's best for men. So if guys are listening to this and they want more friends, this is my advice is find something you really are passionate about and try to find a friend within that, because I think that is a facilitator. For the men that don't
Yes.
have a close friend, I think that could be an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's step 1 for me, and then step 2 is or layer 2 is having shared purpose and values, or maybe just values. And I
Mhm.
think when you evolve to that level, you don't necessarily need the shared activity, the shared interests anymore because you're able to connect on a different level. But I think when you're talking about your friend drinking, I think there's a difference in values, not necessarily a difference in activity. And the 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 activity of drinking, the action of drinking is actually reflecting his values. Going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, he's valuing disengagement more than presence.
Yeah. Which is sad.
The it could be work, right, that gets in the way of your friendship. It could be alcohol that gets in the way of your friendship. It could be a variety of other things, right? But it's there's something there that, yeah, maybe may have evolved. And I think you, again, kind of spanning the 2 ends of the spectrum, you talked about people getting, like, not investing in the beginning because they were afraid of not being, connected with people, or being rejected when they bid to connect with friends. And I think the opposite is also true, that people hold on to friendships when they've shown them that it's not important to them anymore, but we do the same thing. We're fearing rejection. And so, like, we're holding on to not be rejected in the same way in
Mhm.
the beginning. We're backing away to not be rejected.
End of the day, right? We humans, including me, we don't want to be lonely. That's why we're afraid of rejection and abandonment. We don't want to be lonely, right? We're designed for connection. But again, it goes back to if you believe that, right, I can't have other friends or I'm not a good friend, then you're gonna think you're gonna be alone because no one else is be your friend. Thankfully, I didn't have that. Right. That doesn't mean that I haven't grieved. I've been grieving this friendship because we had a lot of beautiful times together. I've had sadness. Grief is this beautiful thing. It's this, someone explained that, maybe Brené Brown, someone explained grief as it's the absence of something like love. It's an absence of love. What it means is that you have lost something that was really important and meaningful to you, and maybe loved it, or it brought value to your life, and now it's gone. And so now that's gone. But what's cool about it is you start grieving is because it's cool that you had that thing. That's that's the grief. Like, wow, I had love, right? Like I grieved being a husband. I didn't fully grieve. I didn't care as much about the grief about my actual wife. Yes, I did obviously grieve her, but I would say more I grieved. the idea of marriage and being a husband and being a family and what that entailed, right? And so with my friend, I grieved our laughter, like our shared humor, our shared interests, how he would come to my home and he was so kind and present and loving with my children. And to watch him with my kids was beautiful. And so I grieve that because my kids had this man was kind of like an uncle, right? That loved them, that showed them attention and connection and presence. Looked them in their eyes, build Legos with them, around Christmas time. And I grieve that because that my kids. He not only did he like, right, leave, stop being friends with me, but he also my children too don't have him. So
Right.
maybe we're getting too off
Right.
too far down that thing here, but I think this is important that we need to like realize what something means to me, a friendship, a relationship, because a lot of men they never understood that they felt hurt by a friendship not working out. They never fully processed it, and now they think friendships aren't valuable. So maybe that's the full circle here: is that men have been hurt by friends, and they say, "I don't want that hurt anymore. Shut it off." I don't know.
Yeah. I remember something I read in the last year or so that said that when you think back to like the popular kids in high school, those who are most well liked like the most people.
Mm,
And so it also brought to mind like the be the change you wish to see in the world, be the friend you wish your friends to be for you. If you want to be well liked, be likable or be like other people, don't just be negative and talk about what's wrong with the world and
yeah,
politics and you know
yeah,
all these other
yeah.
things. Like, sure, be love, be happy, and you'll attract friends that align with that. And I think unfortunately the trend we've seen most recently over the last several years is like it's very easy to tell what people are against, but not as easy to tell what people are for. And I think if we project that in our speech and in, whether you have an online presence or whatever, but if you project what you're for, you're going to align with people. You're going to attract people who are also for the things you're for. And I think that's a much healthier way to connect with friends and a much healthier society to live in when we're really emphasizing the positive things and the things we're for rather than entrenching ourselves in the things we're against.
Amen to that, man. You know, I'll say one more thing and then I don't know where you want to go with this, but I had this idea a couple months ago when I was thinking about building a mastermind, a men's mastermind group or a men's group. When men say maybe I don't need that, right? I identify as Christian. I would say I'm Christian. Definitely Christian, not typical Christian, but we can talk about that a different day. But I'm Christian. And I was just thinking, so even if you're not Christian, let's just pretend Jesus was like a model, right? A model man. Dude, look at his friendships. Look at his group. He always had a group. So what so I was just thinking to myself like, and the way he treated them, right, dude? I mean, washed his feet, all the things, right? Forgave them. Look at Peter and Jesus. Jesus is like, dude, you're gonna betray me. You're gonna reject me 3 times. And Peter's like, nah, man, I'm not gonna reject you, man. Nah, man, no way. We know the story. He does. Peter does apparently, as the story goes. But the point is, look at if he is a model, right? Why would we not need the same? And so that to me is something I would love to continue to like nurture and understand. Is like if this is the way, right? This guy's an example. I think we need to follow him, including having a community of men, friendships where we are challenged, trusted, held. Yes, I say held, right? Because sometimes we're going to be struggling. We need to be held. We need to be seen, heard, and understood. That's the model, man. Is my best guess.
I mean, you think of the dynamic duos. Batman had Robin and Sherlock had Watson, and they were the alpha, but they had that right hand man. And
Mm,
I've always wanted that. And I haven't ever had that really best friend. When you see Pete walking around the college campus, you always see, John with him kind of thing. I never had that.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I have developed a larger group that, not necessarily a ride or die, one single, guy, but, and I think it's healthier ultimately
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
have lots of different friends in all the tiers. So that's what friendship means to me.
Mhm. Amen.
Well, let's wrap up for today, and let's dive into something else in another conversation.
Sounds good to me, brother. It's been great.
Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm just curious. I would say there's just this curiosity that I want to probably better understand friendship and what it means to me, the value and all that kind of stuff, and what I provide, what they provide to me, all this kind of stuff. And just if there's a man listening, like, if you think of somebody, if you think of a friend or a man in your life, it could be a past friend, childhood friend, a friend from high school, whatever. Some man that you kind of miss. You're grieving him, you miss him, and you haven't done anything with that yet, that feeling. Would you be willing to explore that relationship, that connection? Would you be willing to reach out to that man and say, "Hey, man, been thinking about you. Would you like to get coffee?" And would you be willing to kind of just share what that man meant to you, and with no expectations, surrender to the outcomes, but just maybe explore that? Because I think that could be something important for the man listening. And then maybe like just something along the lines of like, if you don't have that man in your life, a friend, what do you want to call it, friend, man, like, who in your life, what man in your life right now are you curious about that you're like, this guy kind of seems like a good dude. He's caring, he's kind, he, et cetera, et cetera, provides value. Who in your life right now would you like to deepen your relationship with? And are you willing to maybe lead that? And I want you to do it for the sake of doing it for you, because I think you need it. I think we all need it. And I think it's going to make you a better husband, better leader, business owner, better, father, you know? And so, yeah, there's just those two things that I'm kind of thinking about that I just want to just challenge and inspire a man to do something with. That's how I want to
Right
close.
on. Cool. Well, where can people find you? Your website, social media? What's the best way to reach out?
I would say I'm more on Facebook. Peter J. Armstrong is what my Facebook name is. I probably post on Facebook the most, a little bit on Instagram, but also my website is peteinspires.com. You check my website out. I have a TEDx talk um, on my website that you can access. It talks about some of the things we're talking about today, talking about success and happiness and relationships and childhood struggles and addiction and all that kind of stuff. My TEDx talk is on there too. So if you want to get a better understanding of what I'm about or some of the research that I rest on and stand on, you can get that there too.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Thank you.
You've been listening to Performance Lab. I'm Dr. Michael Donovan, reminding you that peak performance is a journey, not a destination. For more cutting edge insights and actionable tips, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and stay tuned to the Performance Lab.